right, so I guess we just wait for somebody and then we just talk until then.
Okay.
I'm on. Like a video you shared. What is this video that... Yo, Eric, why don't you just get on? Alright, so who's coming out? You ready to talk, babe?
I guess we're ready.
I guess we're ready.
I can't say anything, so.
I know, you don't got your contacts in or nothing,
Nope.
do you?
Nope.
Oh, man. That's rough. So is it even on?
Are people entering?
I don't know.
Oh, there's one person.
I don't know who that is so far. Oh, here we go.
Oh, okay. Did you share that?
Yeah. Alright, so I know there's going to be a delay and everything. So, that's going to be just fine. But I just want to...
Are people entering?
I don't know.
Oh.
Alright, so let me just turn that off right now.
Okay, I see.
Alright, so there's some people on. You're on. Hey, what's going on, Diana? Alright, so I'm over in the comments now. I'm going to be sharing some stuff here. Yo, what's going on, Egbert? Yeah, Egbert, I might do a little something that you're going to like tonight, so, you know, just always remember me.
What are you going to do?
Don't worry about it. You'll know it when you see it.
Oh.
So we're going to get started, what, about 9:50? Babe, maybe not. We'll see what happens. So, anyway, so we're just going to talk a little bit tonight. I guess I'll just give it about 2 more minutes, stay on for a little while. Oh, good. Yo, we sound crisp and clear. Yo, I'm happy about that. Yo, you ever been on one of those lives where it's like the person's talking?
You can barely hear them.
Yo, don't you hate that?
Yeah.
Yo, that's why I'm an iPhone person. Because the iPhone's making this all happen.
Right.
By the way, if you're not an iPhone person, then that's all right. Your opinion matters with it as well, and that's just fine. But you probably should upgrade to an iPhone as soon as you possibly can. By the way, I don't discriminate. You know, I got iPhone and I got Android devices. My Android devices are never turned on because what's the point of having an Android device when I have an iPhone? I can go get it right now. It's turned off. I actually found it in a rental car, and I tried to give it back to the person. But the person that I tried to give it back to, they didn't want it. You know why they didn't want it? Because it was an Android device. Wow. It was like the best thing ever for them to lose it. So with that, I'm just saying that it's great. Anyway, should we get started? We got about 1 more minute for this. And then we'll get started. So anyway, hey, what's going on, Charlotte? We'll talk about child rearing today, and I want to hear other people's opinion as well. So with everything that we're doing, if you want to call in and you want to talk to us about anything, that'll be just fine, because it's just going to be more fun that way. So anyway, let me get started with the short word of prayer, and then we'll start our real talk. Heavenly Father, we just ask that you bless us as we talk about child rearing. We know that the children that we have are truly yours, and that we just need wisdom in doing this because really we don't know how to ourselves. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
So how do we get started with? Oh, I know what to say. Good morning, Vietnam!
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so anyway, I had to do that because, see, what happened was that I had just finished watching The Office. And I know this isn't about The Office, but The Office, I heard that it was a great show. As a matter of fact, that's what she said. You know, it was a great show. So here's what happened. I watched all the Office series, and it was just the most amazing thing I'd ever watched. And you probably saw the video of me. I was all crying and stuff at the end because it was just so touching. But we're not here to talk about The Office anyway. I just wanted to kind of channel my internal Michael Scott and stuff like that. So anyway, let's talk about what we're really here to talk about. And what we're really here to talk about is parenting. Parenting. Beyond my goofiness and other things like that, what I really do, I have a real goal in life. What I want to do is that I want to be the greatest father who ever lived. As a matter of fact, I want to be tied for first place, along with all the other dads. So I don't believe that there's a rank that I want to be better than the other person's dad. I just want to be the best dad that I can be. Yeah, I know, Egbert, it was a great episode. The last 2 episodes, oh my goodness, my heart. But I want to be the best dad ever. Kind of like Michael Scott. You know, in the last episode, he talked about how his kids are all grown up and stuff like that, and it's like he's the father. I want to be the greatest dad ever. The only thing about it is that parenting is kind of hard. Like, would you say that it is kind of hard?
Absolutely.
Yeah, yo, babe, remember when before we got married and we were doing all that reading and stuff, trying to prepare to have a kid? And then what happened? We finally have kids, and all of a sudden, it's like all this stuff. Yeah, they don't know my kids. It really didn't matter or nothing.
Right.
So there's really no manual that can go with this, but there is some experience. There are things that could work, and I'm just looking forward to learning some more about that. So on my journey to be the greatest dad I can possibly be, to be the world's #1 dad, what I've had to do was to be able to kind of stack my toolbox. Because I'm trying to be here and I'm trying to discipline my kids and make sure that they go into society and they're not a bunch of jerks to everybody else. That's really my goal here.
That's right.
That's your go-to, right, babe?
Right, that is my goal.
Yeah, I want them to be just like you, nice and sweet and caring and loving.
Thank you.
I love you.
Love you too, babe.
So anyway, I'm trying to sit here and stack the kids. Okay, yo, babe, what you said? Beat the kids. Joe Jackson beat his kids into stardom. Yeah, Joe Jackson did beat his kids. Joe Jackson is Michael Jackson's dad.
Oh.
And now look, Michael Jackson was like relevant for what, 8 decades straight?
Yeah.
Because you know he's gonna be relevant for the next 90 years or so.
But
So there's that. But anyway, I'm gonna share with you some stuff that's in my parenting toolbox. First up, I gotta show you this right here, the ladle. Got that in my parenting toolbox. Now, what this is about is that you use this because when you use this, it shows the kid that you love them as well, because this is the same thing that's used to serve them food and nourish them. So it doesn't cause as much trauma as the other things in my toolbox. It's like, okay, there's gonna be some pain, but I love you anyway. Beyond that, sometimes I'm a little bit lazy because, you know, I'm getting kind of old and stuff like that. In my 30s. Can you imagine that?
yeah, that's not really old, but
Over
okay.
3 decades of life. I got great, yo, babe, I got a beard now.
Okay. So what's the next?
Okay, so the next one, when I'm lazy sometimes, is right here. Let me do this side because, you know, the other side was kind of dirty. That's mad dirty, babe. But, you know, that's why we don't like have shoes in our house. But this right here is good because this is a long-range way of discipline. And then you've got the wire. Part of every parent's toolbox. So this wire right here, what happens is that, you know, it doesn't really do much, but it does sting. What it does is that because of the lack of air resistance and stuff, the lack of wind resistance, it kind of goes fast and far. And of course, more than that, when you want it to really, you kind of be something, you got this one right here. Now this is the real type of wire. And of course, you've got Old Faithful. Good old leather strap. See, I don't even wear this one right here. See? Never been worn before.
Yeah, it was a new one.
Brand spanking new. Actually, I did wear it one time. See, what had happened, oh, the hanger. Yo, Eric. Yo.
Yep, he has that.
I can't believe I almost forgot. Thanks for reminding me about that. The hanger as well. So there we go. My complete discipline toolkit for my kids. This type of stuff right here, the ladle, everything right there is going to give you everything you need. Or is it? You see, I'm under the impression that if that's all that's in our parenting toolkit, then our parenting toolkit is a bit too sparse. We've got to have a lot more than just those things that kind of serve one purpose. And that's what we're here to talk about today. We're here to talk about the fact that we have to increase our parenting toolkit beyond this. I'm not saying whether this is right or wrong. As a matter of fact, let me give you my opinion on this. I'm going to be sharing my opinion on this. And I'm going to tell you something about this opinion that I have about this. This opinion that I have will be shared at the end of our show tonight. But in the meantime there, we're going to talk a little bit about how we are going to, how we can make sure that we discipline our kids. So the first thing I'm going to do is that I looked online, and I promise I did not make up these memes. So I'm going to share some memes with everybody here tonight. And what I want you to do is to look into the comment section, and I want you to comment on these memes. Now, I know the memes they're really short, but they do share some really good content. So I want you to look at these memes and pick out the themes and tell me what it means. How you like that?
Yes, good rhyming.
I got bars, right? Yo, Egbert, how you like that one? I got bars that's so out of the world, it's like they're from the planet Mars.
Oh, babe, you and your rapping. Okay.
Okay, anyway. So anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a bunch of these memes, and then while they're there, I want you to take a moment to comment on it and tell me what you think about this. So how do I do this now? Just drag this meme there?
You share it on the screen?
Share it on the screen? I don't know how to do that. Remember.
Oh, you're going to put it in the comments.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to put it in the comments. So, okay, I got it. So first one up. All right, so yo, my boy Egbert, he like that. Yo, how come I can't do this? I see. I wasn't born into the internet, nothing like that. One day I'm gonna grow up and I'm gonna impress my kids because I'm actually older than the internet. Can you believe that? Me older than the internet. Don't even got a receding hairline yet. Even though, you know, some people want me to. You just want to post it, babe?
How do I do it?
All right, so I'm gonna send it to you.
When I upload it.
And then you upload it. Is there a way to upload pictures?
No.
Ah, man, there isn't. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna read off the memes. And then you tell me what you think about this. I got this one meme here. It says, oh, you wanna read it, babe? Because you got a nice voice. I need some water.
It says, I think the decline of child spankings and the rise of disrespectful little expletives are highly related.
So the decline of spankings and the rise of disrespectful little kids, for lack of better words, are highly related. So what do you think about that meme? The decline of spankings and the rise of disrespectful kids. Do you think that there's a correlation between the two? Let me hear about this. What do you think about it, babe?
Well, I don't necessarily agree.
All right, so Renee, you say yes, that there is a correlation between spankings and the rise of disrespectful kids. Also, something else that I want us to think about, and I want you to share your opinion with this. I want to know, do you think that kids are actually getting more disrespectful in today's world?
I'll hold it up to the camera. Oh, I could have done that.
Okay, so Egbert, you say that you need to account for the decline in family structure. So you think that that could be why people are getting more disrespectful. It could be that. My question is, are people really getting more disrespectful? I'm just wondering. Or is it just being perceived as that?
Right.
Because a lot of times, this is just my life sometimes. I go places, and because I look a little bit younger than people there, it's almost like they don't expect much out of me. And I can see that as a bit disrespectful. It's almost like they believe that they are more entitled to a greater level of worship just because a person's younger. And when they don't get what they believe that they're entitled to, it comes off as disrespectful.
Right.
So Marcia says, maybe the reason for the rise in disrespectful kids is because we refer to them as expletives. You know, that's kind of crazy, isn't it?
That makes sense. That is true. And like Hanif was saying, it's like we don't expect for kids to have certain opinions or kids to be able to voice their opinions, even though we tell them, use your words, but then when they use their words, they're seen as disrespectful. So,
but just think about that. Is there, so Don says expectations. Yo, thanks for sharing, Don. So I'm going to move on to the next meme because I really wish I could share this.
And then I can...
Oh yeah, let me do that. I'm going to send it to my wife and then she's going to stick it up in the camera. And the thing about using your words is also kind of cool. You know, we tell them that, but it's almost like we don't expect it from them. I mean, I always like it now because, you know, remember Daniel Tiger. By the way, Daniel Tiger is great. Caillou is ridiculous.
Terrible.
He might need spankings. He might be the only kid that needs spankings.
So
But-
this is the next one.
Yeah, that's the next one. I was spanked as a child. As a result, I now have psychological condition known as respect for others.
Do you guys believe that this is true? Spanking causes us to be respectful?
All right, so Don says, when I was younger, I had to respect elders. Now younger have less respect. Now, what do you mean by respect? Because I remember when I was younger, it's not that I had to actually respect my elders. I just had to pretend to respect them.
Right. So
And the
hush
pretense...
up,
What?
So hush up. Don't say what's on your mind. Always just follow what they say blindly without being able to question it.
That's
That
true.
was what was seen as respect.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy because in my adulthood now, what often happens is that the more I respect someone, the more brash I am. Like, I've yelled at certain people. Most people have never heard me yell in their lives. And there's certain people that speak a lot more sharply with because I'm closer to them, because I respect them. And it's almost like the more cordial I am with somebody, the less respect I may have for them. Not all the time it's true, but that's just kind of like a little correlation. So Rudler says, not true. What's not true? You gotta kind of do that because I'm looking at this afterwards. Modeling respect teaches respect. I believe that too.
Yes.
Modeling respect does teach respect. And I believe that one of the best times that we can model respect is in the moment.
Right.
When a child is speaking, to be able to give them the floor to be able to speak, to be able to show them that they are respected, that way they can reflect it. And then Marcia says, I think there's a difference between respect and fear, but one can lead to the other, if that makes sense. I really do think so too, because I do think that there sometimes is a correlation between fear and respect.
Right.
And then Egbert says, there's a reason that the Bible specifically uses the analogy of a rod. That was a tool of a shepherd to guide his sheep and keep them safe from predators. I like that, Egbert.
That's
Make
a
sure
really good
if you can
example.
call in, that'll be great to be able to share your opinions with this. And then Renee says, there's been a level of respect there has to be a level of respect between child and adult.
Yep.
And honestly, Renee, that's kind of new because when I was growing up, it almost felt like it was a one-way street. Children were to respect adults, but adults didn't necessarily have to respect children.
Right.
And it's kind of cool that we're coming to the point where we have to do it as a two-way street. And then Don, again, lead by example, absolutely. And then Chanel says, I learned respect because that's what I saw around me. If I stepped out of line, yes, I got spankings, yes. But warning worked just as well after that. Never needed another sulking.
Spanking.
I know, she meant spanking.
Right.
Nah, it's all right. We can read through typos and stuff like that. I'm not one of those
So,
people.
Chanel, we'd like you guys to all call in when you guys have a chance. I know you said, if I stepped out of line, yes, I got spanking. What was considered out of line?
Oh, that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, because I think that if we had clarity as, with what is considered out of line, we can start to understand what respect is and what we expect out of our children.
Oh, we got one person calling in. I see the notification.
Okay, so can you accept it?
Let's see. Oh, no, that's a tag recommendation.
Oh, yeah, no.
Okay, and then Gina said, and then Michelle says, the shepherd uses the rod to guide the sheep. Notice he never hit the sheep. We're going to talk about this a lot later. I want you to call in and talk more about it because we are also going to talk about some points of what the Bible says about it, like what the Bible says about the rod, and also the different types of people that the Bible says that you actually should use the rod with.
Yeah.
So anyway, and Gina says, yes, because now parents want to be friends because past experiences. And the thing about it, like,
I'd like her to elaborate on that. Gina, if you can elaborate on what you said, because now parents want to be friends because past experiences, just so we can get a little bit of clarity of what you mean by that. Back answering was out of line, not responding with respect, meaning calling adults by first name or interrupting adult talk.
Okay, so interruption.
That's what Chanel responded with. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to define some spanking soon, but if you want to give your definition of spanking, then that'd be great. And then Don says, beating doesn't always work. It is based on slavery and violence. Hey, if you want to call in and talk about that, that would be great as well. So anyway, we looked at a few of these memes, and really what we're trying to do is to get to the point where we are disciplining our kids and raising them as best as possible. Let's look at another one of these memes as well. I'm gonna send this to you, sweetie, and then we'll. Let me send you just a few of them. Here's the next one.
Okay. Did you send it? That's
All right. If you're using your phone right now, then what's going to happen is that you are going to be able to use the call feature, and it should work pretty well. So Michelle says, I believe there's a correlation between spankings and police brutality. Can you talk about that a little bit? What is the correlation between spankings and police brutality?
Okay, so Chanel's asking us to share call-in info. How do we do this? Oh, I'm terrible at this.
What are you saying?
How do people call in?
Well, there should be an option that is there.
Right.
Is your Facebook app updated? It's probably not.
Oh.
So if you do want to call in, then just put it in the comments, and then what I'll do is that I'll try to see if I can bring you on.
Did you figure it out?
I have no idea how this works.
Didn't you do this before?
I have done it before. That's the crazy thing. Oh, here we go. I got it.
So we have to invite. So who do you want to invite first?
All right, who says they want to come on? If anybody does want to come on, just comment that you want to come on, and we'll make sure that we bring you on.
Okay, we can do Egbert, because he had asked how do we call in.
All right, let me do Egbert then. Where is Egbert? Here he. For Egbert, it's not saying that I'm able to add you.
Right. Okay, so let's try Chanel.
Chanel was down at the bottom, I think.
Oh, there she is. Okay, Chanel, we're going to add you to the call. Okay.
There we go.
I think it's working. Technology.
Okay, tell me that it's just audio and not video.
Oh, it is video too. But we see your ceiling.
Yeah, there's a reason why you're seeing my ceiling.
It's okay.
You gotta give us the heads up. It's Friday night. Okay. I'll show you a nice picture until I am decent. Hilarious.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so I can talk. Okay, so I made the point earlier that back in our day, so I'm one of those in the 40s to kind of help the backdrop that I got spanking. But I was one of those kids, you spanked me once and you didn't have to spank me again. You just tell me and I shape up. But yes, a lot of Caribbean parents, depends on where you're from, beating was their first line of defense. And it wasn't a spanking because anything they could catch, whatever was closest, that's what they used to do the spanking, or what we call back then beating. And as somebody mentioned earlier, that a lot of what we got, looking at it today, is technically abuse. We were beaten with switches and your shoes, whatever they could catch. I don't know if anybody else had this experience. So that to me is abuse, because if you're trying to discipline in anger, then you're trying to get rid of your anger using discipline, which is wrong. The purpose of any form of discipline is to basically help you to learn from what you've done wrong. So that's my take for now.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Okay, that's it?
Yeah, I have to give somebody else a chance.
Okay, cool. Yeah, the thing about I kind of grew up in the same thing, not about the same time, but I grew up.
Let me look old, Jamie. Okay.
So I totally understand your perspective.
I didn't
No, you said you grew up not around my time, and I said thank you for making me old and you young.
Oh, you're welcome. Anyway, thanks for calling in.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. So what Chanel was talking about is definitely what a lot of Caribbean kids have experienced, the parent just kind of grabbing anything to discipline or beat the kid with. So now the debate is whether that's abuse or was it justified discipline.
So let's bring on Gina as well.
Yeah. All right, Gina, we'll try to bring you on. How'd you do it? This one?
No, the one next to it.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we go down to Gina. In the meantime,
all right, Gina, it's not giving us the option to add you.
Sorry about that, Gina.
Yeah. So I don't know if your phone has to have that capability, but let us know if you want to come on and we just can continue to the discussion.
Yeah, I'm gonna put up another one as
Is
well.
everyone you are adding using iPhones? I'm not sure. What if you get beating after the fact? It's not about anger. It's about a real beating. Okay.
So what? Oh, yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
You get a beating after the fact, and it's more about anger. So what about angry beatings? And then, okay, some spankings felt like hate. Yo, that's kind of crazy, right? To have those spankings that really felt like hate. Now, for me, if you are gonna spank and stuff like that, if it's out of hate, then that's just not the way to go.
Right.
So, and the spankings after the fact, I mean, I don't really believe that we should express our anger to our children that way. Right. Later on, I'm going to share a little bit more of my parenting toolkit. But one of the things that I have is that I never want to have my children get the opportunity to see me angry. I don't want them to respond out of anger. I don't want them to get to the point where they believe that they should only respect when people get angry and when they raise their voice. Right. So as a result, I try to make a conscious effort to always speak in an even tone with them. Right. That way they know that my soft no is a real no, that is to be respected. So if my son ever says something like, can we have Burger King? And say it's like 10 o'clock at night. No. But I really want Burger King. No. But I really want to go. I'm not going to yell at him and say, no, that's final and I said what I said. I'm just going to keep saying no until he realizes that my soft no is a real no. Right. And I've kind of put in my heart to be able to make sure.
Comment, it's not what it said.
Yeah, I was actually referring to somebody else that said that sometimes spanking feels like hate. But for Samuel, what Samuel said was, what if you get a beating after the fact? So that it's not about anger, but it's a real beating. So for Samuel, what he's saying is that it's kind of after the fact, so it's not that the anger came in place, but the anger has already subsided. Mm-hmm. But now the beating comes as punishment, pretty much.
Punishment.
I don't know. What happens with that? Does anyone have anything that they can say about that? Oh, and Chanel says that, replying to Samuel, but if you promise a form of discipline, you follow through. Teach your children to trust and take you at your word. Absolutely. Yeah. If you promise your kids a beating, they give them a beating because your trust is important. I'm not saying that I all the way agree with beating, but what I'm saying is that you better follow through with your word as a parent.
Right.
And you better make sure that your word has some type of weight and merit to it. And then Ray says it's one thing to correct a child, but to beat them like how slave masters beat their slaves is crazy. Yeah, that's true. I mean, we're not trying. I don't think for most of us as parents. I think as a society as a whole, we kind of graduated beyond the whole beat them until they're blue and stuff like that. Right. We don't want to do that. I don't think there's anyone out there that wants to do that. But there are some questions that arise as a result of this. Now let's go through just a few more memes, and then I want to know what you think about some of them. Well, we already did the whole respect one, so let's go to a different one. Do they roll? Spanking. Oh, let's do one that's not really about spanking, that tells us not to be spanked. So I'm gonna send you one of those.
All right, so you read this while I put it up.
All right, so let's see. So Samuel, I'm hoping that I got your message loud and clear. I really think it's important to do that as well. And then, I'm supposed to read it, right?
Yeah.
All right, so this is like a flow chart that someone put together. Should I spank my child? A comprehensive flow chart. Are they old enough to understand reason? If yes, then use reason. And of course, I didn't make these, so don't worry about it. It says stop hitting your child. And if no, then they're not old enough to understand the reason you're striking them. So stop hitting your child. What do you think about that? What do you think about that? That if they're old enough to use reason, then use reason.
Then use reason.
If they're not old enough to use reason, then what? It's reversed. Oh, the image is reversed.
Oh. I don't know how to do this, guys. We'll just have to read them to you then.
So well, that one is almost insinuating that it's like a feedback loop where the solution is never spank your kids because it's just outside of reason. Mm-hmm. And then Max, you say if you spank your kids correctly, you should rarely ever have to do it again. As a matter of fact, let's share that meme as well, because I see that coming up a few times about the effectiveness of spanking. And what Maurice just said was that if you do it correctly, if you use it in the right context, then you shouldn't have to do it again. Mm-hmm. And I kind of like this meme that I found with that.
It says, if spanking children really worked, you would only have to do it once. If, on the other hand, it is your go-to discipline method on a regular basis, then you are delusional about its effectiveness. Wow.
So it is always nice when it works the first time. And I like what Maurice said about that too. And then Chanel, you say, at a certain age, kids cannot reason. Say under 4. So what disciplinary options do we have? You know, the real truth about it is I don't really believe that there's a time when the children can't reason, even if it's just a basic cause to effect type of reasoning. And
maybe it's just learning how to switch up your language and so that the kid does understand. Because if we go around believing that kids just have no type of understanding at all, then I mean it justifies us only using spanking as our go-to, where it should be that we try to find more effective ways to communicate with our children. Even as a nurse, they tell you that the way you explain procedures to different people at different levels is different. So for a young child, you'd probably not say everything and use all the jargon, but you'd probably use simpler words. Maybe use a doll, for instance, to show the procedure. And maybe we could use something like that to translate that to explain to our children why what they did was wrong, or why we ask them not to do certain things. So it's about learning how to effectively communicate to the child at an age appropriate level.
Okay. Can we call on a regular phone? And then Marcia says, I think a spanking is to help a child understand boundaries and establish correlations. So, for example, if the child reaches for something and then you correlate it, this is kind of like Pavlovian in a way.
Right.
Remember, like Pavlov's dog, where you correlate two things and then it causes it to happen.
Like if they reach for like fire and you swat their hand away. I actually agree with that.
Yeah, and then Renee says you don't have to use spankings to discipline a child. Your tone of voice and body language could be just as effective.
Yes.
Later on tonight, what I do want to do is share a time when we had to discipline our daughter. We didn't use spankings, but she was doing something that was really irking me. Of course, I didn't want to show her that it was irking me or anything like that because I want her behavior to change. Now, this is kind of dangerous because we have a ginormous television by my standards. It's an entire 42 inches. That's huge.
It's not big at all.
I mean, I've been to other people's houses where the entire TV is their wall, but you know, for me, I watch shows on my phone and stuff. So anyway, she's getting up on the TV stands where the TV can easily fall on her. It's really not the best place to play. And then she's not getting down. I'm wondering what's going on. So how in the world am I going to be able to get my daughter to stop going on the TV stands and also try to get her doing the right thing? So we didn't spank her. She's only 2 years old. How do you reason with someone that's a 2-year? She's not even 2 yet.
She's not.
She's actually going to be 23 months tomorrow. So by the time the show ends. So anyway, how in the world do we reason with someone like that since they're a little bit too young to reason? And then Chanel says, and that's why we need to define spanking. Swatting a child's hand away from fire.
Or a socket. Is that spanking or correction?
For that one, it's just a danger preventable because it's not really spanking or anything like that to me.
Right.
Like if I see my kid.
It's not punishment for doing something wrong. It's saving you from doing something wrong.
Yeah, because better believe if I see any kid running out to the street,
Right.
something I could throw out there, I'm throwing it at them.
Right. So one time Josiah almost ran into a street when he saw his truck almost go into the street, and I yelled at him at that time and he froze. We try not to yell, but at that moment I did use yelling and it stopped him.
Yeah. And then Marcia says, for example, my nephew always used to decline my phone calls when I was on YouTube. Every time he did, I tapped him on the hand. Eventually, he understood that every time he did that, he got a tap, so he stopped and brought my phone when it rang. Who had?
I think that's Sam.
Oh, Sam. Let's do that. Yo, Sam, we about to bring you on.
Can I join? Samuel Cruz.
Yo, where you at, Samuel?
Okay. All right. Well, hopefully he joins back in. Oh, right there. I think we just passed him. No. Okay. All right. So if you want to join in, just let us know and we can. Can I join the call? Yeah. We're trying to look for you, Samuel. Oh my gosh, this is so complicated.
Man.
Oh, can you right here?
Yeah.
Samuel Cruz. Oh, he's not your friend? Is that why?
I don't know what this is.
Okay.
Oh,
All right.
about to get an Android after this.
Okay, this is... All right. Oh, it's paused.
I know because the screen went off for a second.
Okay. Discipline learning is different for people. Yeah, it is definitely. What about punishments like timeout, Jarrett Corville?
All right, so punishments like timeout. We could probably add that to our toolkit as well. Later on, I'm going to share some different things that I've added to my toolkit that have really helped just quite a bit, honestly. So for now, I'm going to share memes as we go along. What I really want to do was to put the memes out for everyone to see. But I'm going to share with you one of my favorite ones. And this one says, sorry to disappoint you, but I can't spank the autism out of my child any more than I can clap the ignorance out of you. And this is kind of interesting because we do have a child with autism. And
Autistic child.
yeah, we have an autistic child. And, for some people, that would be the solution, is just to beat them until they get it right. It actually doesn't work very effectively.
No.
So I like what Chanel is saying. Again, definitions matter. I got a good spanking for pushing a hairpin into the electric socket. I've never done that again. So did the spanking work? In that case, yes.
Yes, it did.
And if you're pushing a hairpin into the electric socket, yes, I probably would.
Right.
Because of the consequence of me spanking is a lot less than what could potentially happen with pushing a hairpin into the socket.
Exactly.
So what I'm trying to say is we should expand our parenting toolkit. It's not so much that I'm trying to say that we should put spankings completely off the table in every scenario, because there is one scenario where I'll absolutely strike my child. And I'm going to share with you that scenario afterwards. But even speaking about, when it comes to spanking, talking about definitions.
Right.
There are a few definitions I want to go through. It seems like there's one thing about spanking. People call it discipline. And I'm kind of leery about calling it discipline. It's one thing like what Marcia, why am I getting so tongue-tied? It's one thing like what Marcia said. Now that's kind of like using spanking as a discipline, where you're using it in a communicative way. You're trying to communicate, and because they don't always understand words all the way, they understand positive and negative sensations, so it's like a conditioner. So here's what happens. When it comes to definitions, when you think about discipline, is spanking usually used as discipline? And I would venture to say, potentially, no, it's not.
I think spanking is punishment for lack of discipline.
Exactly.
Right.
Pretty much my job as a parent to discipline is actually to do that all the time. When things are good, when things are bad, when they exhibit good behaviors, when they exhibit bad behaviors, when they wake up, and even to the point of structuring their day until they go to sleep. That's all a part of discipline.
Right.
Now what happens is that when I failed at disciplining my child, when I haven't done enough to be able to discipline my child, what ends up happening is that they end up being punished. But it's when discipline has failed that that punishment comes in.
Right. So Yandel asked, is spanking a child abuse? So that's really pretty much the big debate. Some people think that it is child abuse, and the other people think that it's not.
And I think Egbert says something really good that kind of connects with that too, because Egbert says regardless of a compelling case, I can make with scripture for physical intervention. I have never once had to spank my son. And I believe that should be the goal, is to get to the point where even if it were to be on the table.
Right, you don't have to do it.
Exactly. I have nearly 1 year old, oh man, the comments, German Shepherd, said to be the third smartest dog. And without a leash, I've trained it to never go in the streets and respond almost mechanically to my call. Maybe it's my technique, but I don't see myself doing it, nor have I ever felt compelled to do so. I can also credit the intelligence of my son, which is a little more advanced in contrast to others his age. Let me love that for a second.
Yeah, that's definitely.
Because I really believe that's really what the goal that we should have as a parent, is not to have this overarching ambition to spank our kids.
Right.
And also not to have it as our own.
Hey, let's see if we can try to bring him in.
Who is this?
This is Egbert. We're going to try to bring Egbert in. Oh, yeah. So it's not giving us the option to let you in, Egbert. But if anybody else wants to join, let us know.
Yeah, if anyone else wants to join, just let us know and we'll make it happen. And then So yeah, that's the thing is that Don is saying that there's no icon to join. So I don't know if I did something wrong.
Okay, so Diana said if it is if you are beating for no reason, that would be abuse. Also, is jail discipline abuse? Which one is worse? Okay.
And then Carl Dean says, at what age is spanking unacceptable?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, it's not something that we employ with our children, so it kind of is.
He's saying, yeah, we don't really do spankings with our kids, so we're trying our best to be of the persuasion that no age is okay to
strike your kids.
To strike a kid, except for the one scenario that I'm thinking of, and in that scenario, the child is probably going to be about 15 years old. Yeah, I just want to hear.
What scenario is this?
Should I just say it?
Yeah, say it, because I don't know what you're talking about.
So, I don't believe in physical violence or anything else like that. But if I ever once get a call from school and they say that one of my children started bullying another child or started fighting another child, and they were the ones that started the fight, then guess what? I'm next.
Right. Right.
So if my children want to do that, and then guess what? That's just what it is. And they're going to have to fight all 250 pounds of me.
Right.
So that's the only time. So Sam, I'm so sorry that you can't join.
I've researched it's easier for iPhone users. Okay. Unfortunately. Okay, that sucks.
Oh, so you have to turn your phone horizontal, and then you can join.
Right, so turn your phone this way.
Hold up, let me see that. Yeah, that's for real?
And then call in?
Yo, how you do that?
No. What is this? This? Nope.
Yeah, I'm still not getting. Oh, is this horizontal?
No, that's not horizontal. That's vertical. Okay.
All right. Anyway,
we'll
let's keep talking. Okay, so with some definitions, spankings are usually not discipline. Spankings are punishments, on the most part.
Punishment for lack of discipline.
Punishment for lack of discipline. So if a parent's job is to discipline, then spanking is not actually in the toolbox of discipline. It's in our punishing toolbox.
Right.
And I'm not trying to say that we should never punish our kids. Let's face it, kids are going to have to get punished at some point.
Our kids get punished. They get their time out. They get isolated. So you definitely have to have punishment in your toolkit.
Absolutely. So that's the thing, is that I don't think that punishment is that necessarily bad at all. And whatever is in your toolkit, you can use that. Now, we do use timeout sometimes at the base level, but there are other things that I'm going to share in a little while that we use even more effectively. Well, I believe that's a lot more effective. So let's talk about something else. Okay, let's talk about something else with this as well. Just to critically think about a few things. There's a justification that comes with spanking a lot of times. And it says that, well, I turned out fine. And I want to hear from you. Just because you turned out fine, does that make it okay?
Right.
Like, really think about it. I went through something, I turned out fine. What do you think about that? I turned out fine, and that means that spanking is okay.
That's usually one of the things I hear a lot of people say. Well, it happened to me, so that it's fine.
And then Chanel says, "Who says you're fine anyway?"
Right. Ha.
I actually have a meme here that says, "I was spanked and I am not okay. I am so not okay that I choose to never spank my own kids because they deserve better, and so did I." And then Maurice says that that's the worst reasoning. It actually is the worst reasoning.
It is.
Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't spank your kids, because honestly, you can do whatever you want with your kids.
Right.
And is that we all cope with our experiences. It's relative.
Yeah.
What I'm kind of concerned about is a line of reasoning. There's a lot of things that happened to me in my life and I think that I'm okay on the most part. For example, when I was 3 years old, the landlord for the house that I lived in took me, locked me inside of a garage, turned his car, and then left me to die. I escaped, and up until this day, I believe that I'm okay. Now, just because I'm okay today, does that mean that I should push everybody else into that experience in that? Should I go lock everybody and their kids in a car garage and say, you know what, I did it, I'm okay. No, not necessarily. Just because I turned out okay doesn't mean that what I went through was okay. It's the same way that we think about things like seatbelts. Back in the day, people didn't wear seatbelts in the car, and guess what? A lot of them grew up to be adults today. Does that mean that I go in the car and don't put kids in the seatbelts? Of course not.
How does timeout help with the child's behavior?
Okay, so he asked how does timeout help with the child's behavior? You want to talk about that, baby?
I think it's a form of de-escalation. So if your child is being unruly or having a tantrum, so to speak, time out does give them the opportunity to cool down and relax. It can also be like when we use timeout, it does. We also like take away their toys or take away certain privileges in the timeout. So then when they feel like they don't have that privilege, you know, that's another form of them learning that whatever behavior they were exhibiting is not good.
Yeah, the thing about a timeout, what it does is that they're in the midst of doing something that is not very good. What a timeout does is it takes them away from doing what was wrong,
right,
and it puts them in an area to be able to reset. So if our son Josiah, who is 5 now, is jumping on my daughter and Maya, and even if he doesn't believe that it's wrong, what we need to do is not just to tell him to stop, but that's just not an appropriate thing to do. We have to stop, remove him from that situation, put him in the corner, get him back down, and that's what timeouts do. And then Carlene said,
I believe in spanking, but I hate when people use that I turn fine argument.
Yeah, that I turn fine argument is
it's terrible. And the thing is that what kind of upsets me with, not upsets me, but bothers me with that point is that a lot of times when we say turned out fine, we talk about, you know, the regular functions of life. Oh yeah, I went to school, I can hold a job, I turned out fine. I can pay my bills, I turned out fine. That's not necessarily what we talk about when we talk about turned out fine. We're talking about, are you exhibiting manipulative behaviors? How are you with your adult interaction? You know, can you communicate effectively? Are you passive aggressive? Those are the things that we talk about when it's, you know, talking about I turned out fine. Are you able to communicate with people, your other peers? And SDA school use spanking is.
And turn out fine is just so subjective.
It is a very subjective.
Also, the whole turn out fine afterwards, we kind of deny the fact that we are very resilient as human beings. We're able to go through incredible trauma and still be able to pursue life without that trauma affecting us too much.
Right. Timeout is dependent on child. Absolutely. It is.
All right, so I see some comments that say it depends on the child, and then Sean says it depends on the parents. Hey, what's going on, Sergeant? Are they spanking because the kid is not listening? Or are they spanking because they can't take their antics
anymore?
Yes,
that's
Sean,
a good point.
Sean, you kind of nailed it, because if it's out of impatience, then that's a different thing than spanking out of any other scenario.
Right. And I often feel that those lines are blurred. They're easily blurred. Saying that the parent is not angry in the moment, we can easily confuse that, and kids can confuse that too, especially if they see anger and they feel it. Even if you say you're not angry, they can see it.
And then Chanel says timeout is dependent on the child, because some children actually like being alone. That's kind of true. Just to let you know, my son is very good at being at timeouts. It doesn't always work.
He puts himself in timeouts, so it doesn't really work for him as much.
Well, remember, the point of it, though, is not so much to use it as punishment as much as this is going to be a way for you to take a break from whatever you're actively involved in, so you can reset back down. So it's kind of giving them a moment to finally do it right afterwards. It's giving that space to be able to think. So whether or not they enjoy it or not, because honestly, I kind of enjoy timeout myself. I mean, I can go in my basement for hours and I'll be fine.
Yeah, I think what was happening with Josiah is because he has such concrete thinking. He knows when he does something that he knows is wrong, he knows he has to kind of separate himself. I don't know if it's necessarily translating as, you know, I need to correct my behavior all the time, because sometimes he puts himself in timeout for things that we wouldn't generally put him in timeout for, so.
Yeah, like dropping something, dropping a toy. Oh, that's something that I didn't want to happen. That's timeout. And he actually puts himself in timeout. Now, here's the thing about why it works so well. Because if Josiah is engaged in an activity that's not very good, he goes to timeout. As adults, this is still something good for us. For example, I go to work sometimes and someone pisses me off. Guess what I need? A timeout.
Right.
I need some time to recollect myself.
Right.
So giving yourself a timeout and realizing that it's an okay thing to do as an adult is actually very valuable. Right. And we should carry our timeouts into adulthood. You got something you want to read?
Max, I want to bring you in. I don't know if we can. Maurice, let's see. I'm going to try to invite you because I think you have a lot of good things to say. Here, I'm going to add you.
There we go.
There we go.
Yo, by the way,
when you go to work and break the door. You're talking about that time you broke the door. Okay.
Yo, Sergeant, he's like, I feel like the most aggressive case
I
is
only see your 5th grade. I have a dream suite. Oh, no. Oh, thank you, Daniela. Oh. All right. Okay, so we're adding you, Maurice. Max.
Yo, where Maurice even come from?
I know.
Like,
I'm reading the name, but we call him Max. I need a daily timeout, 8 a.m.
Oh, hallelujah.
Right.
That's right. We do need a daily timeout.
Okay. Maurice, do you see that we're trying to add you?
Until then, I'll talk about something else as soon when he comes in. The other thing that people use to justify the spankings is that, well, I learned so much from it.
Right.
And it's true. We can learn from even negative experiences.
Right.
But just because we learn from something, does that necessarily mean that it was the best way to learn?
Right.
So, it says connection failed. Let me try this again. Oh, come on, man.
All right, let's do it.
Oh, it said no, not yet.
Oh, not yet.
All right, so here's what happened. One time, this is when I was working on my house, and I was up on the roof of my house. All of a sudden, I didn't strap my harness in the right way. So what ended up happening is that I fell off the roof. I was okay. I promise I was okay. No broken bones. You see, I'm all in 1 or 2 pieces now. So anyway, I fell off the roof, and you better believe, after that happened, I knew how to tie the best harness to strap myself to the roof. It was great.
Okay.
No, decline.
Okay.
So I was good, like I learned a lot from falling off the roof. Now what else I learned is how to tell other people how to tie a proper harness on the roof. Now to do that, I don't need to go pushing them off the roof, so they don't have to learn the way that I did. And just because I learned from it doesn't mean that the experience was great.
Right.
And Ed says here, learning from trauma is still trauma. And that's exactly it. It's still trauma nonetheless. And spankings, especially frequent spankings, can be a very traumatic experience.
Right.
And then if it doesn't work, try leaving and come back. Yeah, definitely do that.
All right, so can you read what Yandel said?
Yeah, Yandel says, for example, former star running back Adrian Peterson was
Good
charged
example.
on a case because of hitting or spanking a child. I believe he was cut by Minnesota Vikings, and there were pictures of marks of the child. He believes it's discipline, but once he looked back on what he did, he realizes what he did was wrong. Many people believe he was a horrible person for doing.
Well, that's the problem with using spanking as a punishment tool. In the moment, the parent can get carried away in their anger. So that's why I say those lines can be blurred, easily blurred. When you are striking your child, leaving marks and really letting out your aggression on the child, even though it might have been that you thought you were disciplining, but it could actually be borderline abuse.
Yeah, it could be.
Right.
All right, you got any other?
Turn your phone horizontal. Okay.
What does horizontal even mean?
Yeah, turn it like this, horizontal.
And then.
Okay. Let's see. Let's try it again.
All right, cool. So even. All right, so Egbert says marking your body and self-mutilation is a sin. That should be an easy indicator you've gone too far.
Right.
Oh man. I have some Bible verses about the spankings up here.
Can you put them up? Pull them up?
Yeah, I'll pull them up. Because here's what happens. A lot of times people talk about how in the Bible talks about using the rod. So let's transition to talk about that for a little while, since we're already about an hour in and we only have an hour to go. And part of what I want to talk about next is how we can expand our parenting toolkits. Because what I've been talking about this time is like, you can do whatever you want with your kids.
Right.
So if you're spanking is part of your toolbox, that's fine for now. For us, we choose on the most part to remove it. But the thing about it is that we can't just remove it and say don't spank the kids and not have something else to do with it.
Right.
I would say even if it's a part of your toolbox, then you want to be able to have other things in it so that you can delay using physical force.
Yes, expand.
So what does the Bible say
All right,
about
let's try to add Eric.
the rod? Yeah, let's try to add Eric. Spirit of rod, you're a small
Okay.
child.
Why isn't it? Okay, there we go.
Yeah, I'm up.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah. So, hey.
Yo, it's
So,
also
just want to let you guys know, if you want to be added, you have to turn your phone horizontal.
Oh, okay, cool. Yo, by the way, Eric, yo, good job, like, not having the LeBron James thing happen.
Yeah.
Right here.
So just want to say, good conversation. I'm about to spank this little one right here
Yo,
because he's giving me a tough
adorable.
time. So just want to say, good conversation. I'm about to spank this little one right here. All right. All right, guys. God bless.
cute, very cute. All right, so if you want to join, turn your phone horizontal, and then we can add. So Maurice, try to turn your phone horizontal. Oh, there we go. Well,
Yeah, we've been doing that the whole time.
Yeah, right. All right, yeah. So let's keep going.
Yeah, so what does the Bible say about this?
All right, so we're gonna go into the Bible.
So Proverbs 13:24 says, "Whoever spares a rod hates his son, but he who loves him is diligent to discipline him." What do I think about that? And then what Egbert says here, there are a lot of scriptures that reference the suffering of Christ that are misinterpreted to support spanking. What? Who does that?
Oh,
To support spanking. Also, scriptures about the rod being for fools. As a matter of fact, let's talk about that too,
Yes,
about the rod being
yes.
for fools.
oh no. Okay.
Because what happens is that a lot of times people say that they're spanking because the Bible commands them to spank. But there are verses in the Bible that tells us that there are other people to beat as well.
Right.
And it's
Be
like,
careful.
yeah, for example, Proverbs 26 verse 3. There the Bible says, "A whip for the horse, a bridle for the donkey, and a rod for the backs of a fool."
Right.
So there the Bible's trying to tell us that if a person's a stupid adult, beat the crap out of them, to
Right.
quote, 45. But what I'm trying to say is that why is it...
I'm ready. Okay, let's try this.
Yeah,
again.
go ahead and try it.
Yeah.
Why is it that we're okay with hitting kids because the Bible says so, but when it comes to hitting adults,
We don't do it.
exactly. So it's like there's a little bit of a disconnect there, in my opinion, with the fact that we say that we do one thing because the Bible says so, but we don't do the other thing.
Right. So sometimes I feel like there is some type of emotional connection to striking your child. And it's not necessarily that it's biblical. We just happen to use this text to support it.
It's almost like confirmation bias.
Yes.
I already believe it, and now, oh, look, here's something that supports what I'm saying.
Right.
Here's something that's pretty cool. Listen to this phrase. When a child hits a child, we call it aggression.
Right.
When a child hits an adult, we call it hostility. When an adult hits an adult, we call it assault. When an adult hits a child, we call it discipline.
Wait, can you repeat that with the adult thing again?
Oh, in Proverbs 26, verse 3, the Bible says that the rod is for the backs of fools. Now, what happens is that we use other verses of the Bible to justify hitting children. However, and because the Bible says so. However, the Bible says that we should hit adult fools. We should hit stupid adults. Yet no one does that because we acknowledge that it's probably not the best way to do it. And that's Proverbs 26, verse 3.
Alni did say, she corrected, said, no, life will beat a fool. But what we're talking about is what the text says. Proverbs, go back to Proverbs. There's no life will beat the fool.
No, life will be the fool. And the thing about it is that I do agree with that. Life will be the fool. But what I'm trying to say is like, people go through beating kids and they justify it with scripture. When the same Bible says to be fools, yet we don't follow through with that.
Right.
Because we understand that that's probably not necessarily the spirit behind what the Bible's trying to say.
Right.
The Bible's trying to say that people need correction. That's all it really is. Whenever things happen, people just need correction. Fools need correction. Children may need correction. That doesn't mean that we have to take it literally and strike them. And besides, this belt that I have here, is also not a rod.
Right.
It's not.
Right.
So I just what I'm trying to say is like I don't believe that it's an effective thing to use the Bible as justification
Right.
for striking out children.
Yeah. That's why you said that it's more like a confirmation bias.
Yeah, it is. I'll beat my child, and then afterwards I apply the Bible to it instead of, oh, the Bible says it, then I'm going to do it.
Right.
So I don't believe that we have to implement everything in the Bible, like shaving people's heads or anything else like that.
Right.
It's just that we have to expand our toolkit. People do need correction.
Diana said sometimes logic and reasoning can help a kid understand what the lesson is. Example, if you don't eat your veggies, you may not get calcium, and calcium is necessary for strong bones and teeth. Therefore, if you want your teeth to grow healthy, you eat them. A few days later, this kid came back and asked me about the logic, and they started eating spinach, etc. from that understanding. Asel said, oh, thank you, Diana. Okay. Proverbs 26 and Proverbs 13 are two very different things. Asel, can you expand on that? Asel, can you come on?
And then Sean says, because as adults, we are held to the standard of knowing right from wrong. As kids, we are taught with such as spankings.
I can't add you, Asel.
Which by the way is fine, Sean. Like I have no problem with that.
We're
So in other
held to a
words, we
standard.
should not have to hit each other, and if we do, it's considered assault. Yeah, and of course it is. But I do believe that spankings are probably not the most effective tool anyhow. I think that if we use other tools, it can go a lot farther. And again, like this
I shall try.
meme that I read, it says when a child hits a child, we call it aggression. When a child hits an adult, we call it hostility. When an adult hits an adult, we call it assault. When an adult hits a child, we call it discipline. And then Asel says, I shall try.
Oh, yeah, because we didn't try to put him on.
Yeah, here's a funny meme right here, babe. Look at this.
I was spanked. Yes.
I was spanked as a kid and I turned out just fine. That's my Hitler impression. It's a picture of Hitler's face saying I was spanked as a kid and I turned out just fine.
How old are these kids?
I don't know. My kids right now, one is almost 2 and the other one's 5 years old.
Right. Chanel also brought, do not withhold discipline from a child. If you swap them with a reed-like rod applied with godly wisdom, he will not die.
Yeah, the amplified version. So that one.
Right.
So the thing about it is that I'm not saying that the Bible doesn't say it.
Right.
I'm just saying that, do we then just apply it just because? And then I would ask, what about the other things that we just don't apply?
Right. Okay, so we still can't invite you yet.
So while certain
Hi,
people
Janelle. Hi, Janelle.
Janelle is so awesome. Oh, 6 years old for Diana. So let's talk a little bit about expanding the toolkit now, since we just have a little bit more time. Expanding a parent's toolkit. Now there are some social media famous forms of quote unquote discipline or punishment that we've seen. One of them I agree with, the other one I don't necessarily agree with, but I want to hear from everybody what they have. So we're just going to talk about expanding our toolkit. So if you do want to use spankings, the only advice that I would give if you want to take advice from another parent is to have more in your toolkit than just spanking. That shouldn't be our go-to thing. And we have to be able to have more than just talking and spanking. Because here's what happens sometimes, what I've actually seen happen. What ends up happening is that the parent talks to the child doesn't hear it. Then the parent repeats it. As though repeating the same exact thing is going to help out at all. And it doesn't. And then out of frustration with this one method not working, they turn to their second method, which is spanking. And then they say that they weren't impatient.
Actually, what I notice is that the parent will say something to the child once, then twice, then yell at them, and because at that point they're yelling at them, they're frustrated, then it leads to the spanking. So that's where that line is blurred again. Are you hitting them out of frustration, or are you correcting the behavior?
Exactly.
Some parents use public shaming as punishment. That's a whole issue. Yes. when it's shared on social media. How about now? Okay, let's see.
All right.
Okay,
Perfect.
great.
All right, let's do this. And Egbert, let's talk more about
The public shaming.
the public shaming. I'm gonna pull it up. Yo,
There you are.
There you are.
It's fire.
I know, bro. I didn't even know I was gonna jump on this quick. Kim, I know it. All right, so y'all been saying a good phrase. Let's go through the adult one again.
Yeah.
Each one of those one I liked.
Which one?
The adult one?
It was like a child hits a child. That one.
Oh, okay. So that means, yeah.
When a child is a child, you call it aggression. When a child is an adult, you call it hostility. When an adult is an adult, you call it assault. When an adult is a child, you call it discipline.
Okay, so the very first three: a child hits a child, I call that aggression. A child hits an adult, I will call that aggression. An adult hits an adult, I will call that an aggression. If there is an adult that is hitting someone who's not your child, I will still call that aggression. If you are the legal guardian of that child, now we're talking about something different. I will never look at a father or a mother disciplining, or let's just use spanking, tapping the butt. I will never look at a mother or father tapping a child's butt the way I would look at a random person in church tapping that same child's butt. The same exact way you never look at, a parent having a bath with their child, a stranger having a bath with their child is like, oh, no go. There's certain different relationships allow for different contexts. So when we use that meme, it's a meme that sounds good. It's just my issue with it is every relationship has different contexts. Like, even with how you guys may choose how to discipline your children, there are phrases or even things in how you choose to talk to your child, where if I were to participate in the same exact way, it would be extremely appropriate because I don't have that type of relationship. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not gonna say I have the answer, because like when I grew up, I did get beatings, and I got beatings I felt I didn't even deserve. Like I remember one beating I got was a teacher lost one of those scientific thermometers, and I got blamed for it. I told her I didn't have it. My dad came to the school and he beat me in front of my classmates, and then he left. And then it's after the day's done. She's like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I found it." But it's like what was done was done. So I don't know. I'm not gonna say that's good or bad, because everybody reacts to certain things differently, and I don't think it's fair nor is it right to necessarily put kids through that type of thing, because not everybody responds to those things the right way. I don't even know if I responded to it the right way. But what it taught me was, don't even get in the appearance of trouble. Only because sometimes, and this actually is something I follow in many facets of life. A lot of us all wish that we lived in a world where everybody else knew what was right and they respected what they knew was right. Unfortunately, I think sometimes people forget crime exists and people don't care. They know what they're doing is wrong. So like you look at women, who talk about respect women, I can dress any kind of way I want, and that doesn't mean that gives you the right to touch me or anything like that. And that's beautiful. But you can't go in Brooklyn 2:00 in the morning in the dark by yourself, dressed any kind of way, talking about respect me, I'm a woman. Not that your message is wrong, it's just that the people there don't care, and they're gonna do whatever they want. And so to tie that into the concept of beating, I think it kind of teaches you, listen, there are things that you shouldn't do, and there is another world out there that does not care enough to respond to you the right way. So I'm kind of going to just give you this tap, because that's the worst I'll do to you. I'm gonna just spank you. Your butt might be red. You're gonna cry a little bit, but that's the worst that you're going to get from me. As opposed to you go, and we all kind of see that thing where you go somewhere And let's say like there's that one girl. Oh, okay. So you always see the story where you have that one girl who rolls up on the dude and she's smacking the dude in the face and she cursing him out and she doing all of this and he snuffs her. And everybody's just like, oh my God, that was so wrong. But it's like you didn't learn. Sometimes you can physically endanger yourself when you start doing things you're not supposed to do. So I'm not saying, hey, beat your kids. And I agree with you guys where there's a very strong balance between abuse, and letting out your anger. I don't think it should never be that. But I do kind of see where it can have that benefit. I don't know. What do y'all think?
Yeah, the point I'm making is that if another parent wants to do it, that's fine. That's fine. I'm not going to say anything about that because all of us are trying to live on the best thing possible. So I'm not trying to criticize parents for doing that. I'm just trying to remove a lot of the fluff and also to expand our parenting toolkit. So we have more than just in case better ways to do things. That's all it is.
Because I do believe that with kids or with people, there are effective ways that we communicate to our children that this is not right, and this is how you're supposed to behave. And it doesn't always have to, we don't always have to use beating. And I think the problem is that it's part of the toolkit that we hold so strongly that it becomes kind of our go-to where we don't have enough to really support our parenting style. So just to say, you talk to your child and then that's just not enough. It's not enough. Like he said, it seems very sparse. So that's what we talk about, expanding it.
So I'm gonna ask you something, okay? Have you ever come to a place where you felt that physical consequence would be more effective than verbal?
No.
For me, no. Because I mean, I'm Haitian, the same type of background where I did get spankings. I don't want to say that I felt that, not that I was good and I behaved right all the time. But it did teach me or what happened in my brain is that I didn't really have the dialogue all the way. So it was just like I did something wrong and I got beat. So it just I didn't feel like it was effective all the way. And it made me not really love doing good. It made me fear consequences. Another thing I want to talk about is what our goal is as parents to teach our kids to love to obey, to love to do the right thing, not fear to do the right thing, which is typically is very different. You don't want your kids to just be scared straight into obeying because they're going to live their life fearful of consequences, which I feel like something that I suffered with for a long time. And it was a cycle I had to within myself to live a life and not fear of every consequence. And while it might have translated as good behavior, internally it was difficult for me. I don't know if that makes sense.
I love the responses. Y'all doing a great job with this live. We're going to get through all these technical difficulties, but what y'all doing, guys?
All right, thank you.
So some other things, so let me turn the volume back.
Use headphone to remove feedback, right? Turn your volume down.
Yeah, they're just saying that there's some feedback. We heard it too on our side. And because of the delay that happens.
There's a huge problem.
You got to read it out loud so that.
Okay, so Chanel said there is a huge problem in first world where our cultural norms are different from North America. When we say mom beat me or dad knocked me out, it is a mere term, not a realistic representation of what happened. However, social services is called it immediately. So we have to be careful even the words and phrases that we use when speaking with our kids and even with each other. That is very true. There are definitely cultural differences.
Yeah, and like if a Jamaican says, mom beat me or dad knocked me out, we know that means that it was just probably something regular, it's a spanking. But here's the thing, For me, I really want to be able to delay this as much as possible. I do believe that there are
Or
more
avoid it
effective.
completely.
Yeah, avoid it completely. That's my goal. If I can go throughout my entire life without ever once spanking my child, I would consider that pretty darn successful. But to do that, there are certain things that I have to do, and I have to be able to kind of expand my parenting toolkit. One thing that we're going to have to be able to say is that we have to be humble enough to know that we haven't tried everything. I've heard a lot of other parents arrogantly say, I only beat my child as a last resort after I've tried everything else.
What is everything else?
And my question sometimes is, what in the world is everything else?
Right.
And why in the world does this parent have in their minds that they know everything to try and that they have to do this now?
Right.
So instead, what I want to do is to get to the point where we have other tools that we can use.
Right. So Chanel said, share with us some alternatives, please.
So let's talk about some alternatives.
All right.
I already said that there are two that have been shared on social media. One I agree with, one I don't necessarily all the way agree with. Actually, both of them I don't fully agree with all the way. But one of them I agree with in principle. So let me start with one of them. Has anyone seen those memes where they're giving out to these kids these old man haircuts?
Yes.
Anyone saw that? What do you think about that?
No. That's like public shaming, not necessarily. I don't think it has anything to do with. It's not the correct punishment for whatever behavior they exhibited. Humiliating your kid is not necessarily the right type of punishment.
But notice that they didn't spank their child.
They didn't.
But would you say that that's a bit more traumatizing than spanking?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to say that probably there are worse things than spanking. And publicly humiliating your child, I believe, is worse than spanking.
It is definitely.
It's worse than physical abuse. Public shaming is never a good thing. And I remember with these memes, people were saying like, oh, if you act grown, you look the part. As though being disrespectful is acting grown. As though we're expecting adults to be disrespectful. That's not acting grown.
That's not.
That's actually pretty much acting childish. And then to do the whole bald head, look like an old man type of thing, that's just kind of out of line and out of hand.
Right.
So that's one of them. The other one is more recent. There was a video of a father that made his daughter walk to school. Now, hear the background thing with that. She was bullying someone on the bus, got kicked off of the bus. So what is the alternative?
Walking. I didn't have a problem with it. I thought it was a good punishment for her, honestly.
Now, for me, I didn't like the fact that he videotaped it.
Right.
I didn't like that. And then, we saw it on social media. So I didn't like that part. But the whole making her walk to school, there's nothing wrong with that because guess what? A lot of us walk to school. And we're just fine.
Right.
Walking to school is not abuse. Not only that, but what ends up happening is that she was kicked off of the bus for bullying. So what's the alternative? You want me as a parent to pick up the slack for your bad behavior and to give you this great benefit?
Right.
No.
So the benefit is she gets to be on the bus to go to school. The benefit is she gets to be in her dad's car. The alternative now is she gets that privilege of being in the bus or being in the car taken away. I think I personally didn't have an issue with that form of punishment. I didn't really like that he videotaped it.
Yeah.
But it did bring some light.
And to that, the consequence fit what happened.
Right.
You get kicked off the bus.
I want to read that.
What do you say? Go ahead.
Sorry. I like what you said, Jeanette. When my son starts frustrating me, I make him meditate. He gets time to center himself, and I get to speak with him.
I'm gonna start using the meditate time as
awesome.
As a better way to say in time out, because time out people make it seem like punishment when really that's what the purpose is to get them to meditate and center themselves, and then come back with a better behavior. And this is something that adults need to do as well.
Right. But going back to the story about the dad, I know that there were differing point of views. I know another friend of ours on Facebook was talking about how he didn't agree with walking as the punishment because he felt like that is the parent now bullying the child. It was another perspective, not one that I personally agree with, but I do feel like with the dad, it wasn't that he was physically forcing his will on his daughter. He didn't hit her. But I feel like the point was still made, is there was still a good punishment, and walking is not really painful. It's more uncomfortable, but it's not painful. Another friend of ours, she had an issue with her daughter, and her young child cursed. And so she had her do a wall sit. Again, I don't think that's bad. It's a punishment. It's uncomfortable, but it's not physical, you enforcing your physical will upon the child.
And there's no way that could be traumatic, in my opinion, either. And
Right. And that's not traumatic.
My question
It
is
can go both
though,
ways.
are we developing children with thick skin, or are we creating mentally fragile children?
Good question.
You see, the way that I see it is like, on most cases, I truly do believe that spanking can actually create thinner skin.
Yeesh.
And the reason why is because it's saying that instead of being able to work through things, we resolve things with physical violence.
Right.
Oh, by the way, Jay asks, is there a difference between punishment and discipline? We actually talked about that already.
Right.
That a lot of times this is not discipline.
Right.
So anyway, I really believe that using violence can create thinner skin when it comes to children. We can create thick skin when a child is disrespectful, as an example. If a child is disrespectful, to tell them how to speak more respectfully. That is thicker skin. And again, I'm not all the way saying that we have to take it off. And then we keep using terms without agreed upon meaning. Discipline, spanking, bullying, abuse, etc. Well, discipline is not punishment. That's what we talked about. So as far as what we're going to agree on, spanking is not discipline, ever. Well, except for that one time, like what Marcia used, where it's communicative. Mm-hmm. But besides that, when we usually spank kids, it is not discipline. That's punishment.
Punishment for lack of discipline. So I want that to be clear. When we spank, it's punishment for lack of discipline.
Yeah, even beatings with explanations, that's punishment.
Still punishment.
Timeouts are punishments.
Right.
Those are not disciplinary measures. Those are punishment measures. Discipline is everything else you do on the way to desired behavior.
Right. So for example, every morning our son gets up, he goes to the bathroom, he washes his hands, he brushes his teeth, then he gets dressed for school. That's his discipline. Now, if he were to get up and come downstairs, grab his phone, start playing, he's now out of discipline. And if we choose to punish him for going out of that, that's punishment for lack of discipline.
Yeah, but the structuring is the discipline.
The structure is the discipline.
And then a lot of people are asking, what are our preferred strategies? We don't have that much time left. So let's get into some of the strategies that we have. Right. I gave you 2 of those. Now, really and truly, one of the best strategies that I found is the removal of privileges. Yeah. Now, this has to be used very strategically, but I can guarantee you that it mostly works.
It definitely works for Josiah.
It definitely works for Josiah. It works for a lot of other kids as well. Right. And what you're doing is that you're creating a privilege in something they value. Now, there is a way that parents use this that works very poorly. What some parents do is that they tell them, okay, go to your room. So the way that they remove privileges is tell them to go to the room. Now, all of a sudden, the place that is their room, that's supposed to be their sanctuary, becomes a prison. They now hate their room. Or other things, like when they ground them or they take away video games. If we were to take away video games from my child, I get that that's a removal of a privilege, but at the same time, where does the value go? Into the video game.
Right.
So they're going to want it even more. They say that this is the most valuable thing ever. So we try not to use that as far as punitive measures that are going to teach.
Well, just let's clear that up, because I know that one issue that we have with our son is that he is a very, very, very slow eater. And a lot of times he'll take his iPod and he'll try to eat while on his iPod, and he's so easily distracted. For me, I now am employing take away that iPad so that he has to sit, focus, and eat his food.
But just to clarify, with our son, when he goes on the iPod, he doesn't have any games. It's very educational. Right. So we actually want him to learn that way. Right. So what we're doing is that we're creating value in something that we want for him. So what are some ways that we can create value for something that we want for our kids? So here's one that we use sometimes. Let me go through a few of these. Oh, just to let you know, also, you want to make sure that they're losing something, not gaining something. So we don't ever punish our kids with extra chores. Yeah, no. Chores are just things that need to get done no matter what.
Yep.
That's just what it is. So you don't get punished with chores. You're going to have to grow up and to be able to actually just do your chores like an adult one day. It's just what it is. So we don't punish them with this so that when they grow up they say, well, I was punished with this, so I don't want to do it. We don't punish them and make them read the Bible either, because we don't want them to hate the Bible. So here's exactly what we do. We create a privilege and then we take it away. My son enjoys reading. That's something that I want to encourage. I want to encourage his love of reading. So in the norm, he's always going to get one story that we read together at night. As a privilege, he can get 2 stories. 220-page stories. Oh. Now, just to let you know, this takes forever. But what ends up happening is that if things don't go well, then guess what we can use as a punishment? Josiah, you only get 1 story tonight. So what's happening is that we built value in the story, and then we're taking it away from him. We take away that privilege of a second story. Other things too, extracurricular activities. So things like looking through the telescope. That's something that's pretty good. It's a lot of fun as well. So what can we do? Take away that privilege. We're not going to look at the stars tonight because of this. So what we're doing is that we're creating value in something, and then if things don't go well, we take away something that is a privilege that is valuable.
Okay.
So
I think
go ahead.
I think some people are saying that discipline is corrective measure, a form of training. A form of training. Yes. See, but that's where I was saying that it's not necessarily corrective, but it's already like the routine, so to speak.
Okay, so corrective measures. So if a person is learning how to drive and they're driving in the car and they do something wrong that is in the car, corrective measures is to instruct them and stuff like that. Punitive measures would be you're speeding now, you get a ticket.
Right.
So to me, getting the ticket is equivalent to things like spanking or other types of punishments. Corrective measures is what we're going to talk about in a second with Maya, as far as disciplining her to stop being on the TV stand.
Right.
But pretty much what you want to do is that you want to create value in something, and then you remove privileges. Here's some other things that you can create as value. My time with the parents. Now for me, I want to be able to budget as much time as possible with my kids. But guess what's one thing that you might disagree with that I do sometimes? I dock them 15 minutes with me. Because I want them to value daddy time. So now you get 15 minutes less. What else can you do? I want them to value sleep. That sleep is something that's important. Sleep is a privilege. So sometimes you know what happens? If things didn't go very well, I dock them sleep time and I'll wake them up 15 minutes earlier. And that way they realize what a privileged sleep is. It really does work.
The important part, respecting the law. Maurice, I really want to get you on. Try to turn your phone so you can better explain to us.
You should just be able to do it because we keep seeing it, but go ahead and do
Right.
that.
All right. So turn your phone, Maurice, or Max, and we'll try to put you on.
And the point is that we want the kids to, when we discipline our kids, when we do punishments with them, what we are trying to do is to get them to be able to lose things that they had. Go ahead again, babe. To lose things. Yeah, and the thing about it is, I know you're not going to be in agreement with lessening family time, but the thing about it is like, this is time that I was planning on sacrificing for them. So I do have the time that I will spend with them that is non-negotiable, and then there's other time that I should have been at work, but I'm actually taking an extra hour to be with my kids. So that's bonus time that I'm sacrificing for them. With that, I can use the time that I'm sacrificing for them to bring it back just a little bit.
Yeah, so Jean Lamo said, I remember growing up, the adults would force the person not paying attention to pray as punishment. So backwards, you grow up hating prayer.
And that's what I'm saying. We don't want them hating these things that are good. We don't want them hating chores. We don't want them hating their room. We don't want them hating prayer.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that there's some of that extracurricular that they value, that is already theirs, that they're losing. And human beings were motivated more by making sure we don't lose than what we gain. Right. So other things too, like science projects. Are we going to work on a science project together? Guess what? If things will go well, we're not doing that science project. All right, so I'm hoping that Max comes on. So that's all it is. You find something that they already have that is a privilege, and you can remove all these different privileges. Other things, the question behind the question method. Looking deeper into what it is. I only have 20% battery left.
Oh, yeah.
No, that's all right. We'll be done in 30 minutes anyway. So the question behind the question method, that's something that's going to be very important to use. Now, I mentioned that my daughter, she was going up on my ginormous 42-inch television. And what was going on is that I don't want her up there. Now, why in the world was she going up there? That's what I have to ask myself. I could simply just take her, put her in timeout, and then hope that the punishment is going to do it. I could just take her and beat her and hope that that changes her behavior. But what's going on underneath? Here's what was happening.
I'm so good.
So here's what was happening. What was happening is that she was going up on the TV, and while we were watching TV, and then while she was there, we would call to her and say, Maya, get down. And she would actually like hearing her name. What was actually happening was that she was feeling neglected. She wanted a little bit of attention. So she was getting up on the TV and loved having her name called. Now, when I took stock of that, I realized what I needed to do. The issue wasn't her getting on the TV stand. The issue was how much time was I investing in her. So now when we watch TV, we take a break every 15 minutes, either one of us, to go and spend time with her. That way, she believes that she's not being neglected.
Right.
That's discipline. It's part of the process. But of course, one day I thought to myself, I said, I really do not want to have to be hovering around her 24 hours a day. As a result, here's what we did next. I would spend some time with her, and I started showing her the different things that she can do. So like, hey, we can play with this. So we do that a little bit. Here's another way you can entertain yourself. All of those things. I made sure I gave her attention, and then I showed her different things that she can do to occupy herself when I can't give her attention. That's discipline. Discipline is that process of instructing. It's not the consequences of anything else.
Okay, Max, I don't know what's going on, buddy, but you're not coming on.
You try again. So that's called the QBQ method. You think about something as what's going on in the background of what they may want. And a lot of times we start realizing that we're the ones that are kind of doing something wrong as parents, and we're the ones that need to fix it. My daughter was just crying for attention. Guess what happens now? We give her enough attention, she never goes back on the television. And that's something that a spanking could not correct. So I corrected something within myself. You want to use the QBQ method as well. Other things too. As parents, we want to always expand our toolkit. Always. And with other parents, I often wonder, what do we do to expand it? The best book that I can recommend right now, and if you talk to me in about a month, it'll be a different book. This is just the most recent book I read. It's called QBQ Parenting. Question behind the question, parenting. It lets you get down to the nitty gritty of what's going on.
We can put it in the comment section.
QBQ
or
Parenting.
We'll put a link to the book in the comment section. Oh, connection failed, Maurice. All right, if anybody else wants to call in, just let us know and we'll add you. Remember to turn your phone horizontally. QBQ Parenting. Yeah,
QBQ Parenting. The other thing that I'm going to recommend, and I always recommend this platform, because it's called the Great Courses. The Great Courses is a way for you to be able to educate yourself. Now, back in the day, just to let you know, we spent a lot of money on the Great Courses. They were like $500 a course, and we unfortunately paid them, and they got a lot of our money. But now what you can do is that they have it as a subscription, like with Netflix. There are two courses that I recommend on parenting from them. The first one is called The Scientific Secrets.
Try now, please. Okay.
The Scientific Secrets for Raising Kids Who Thrive. Now that's about child rearing, and it gives a lot of techniques to be able to understand how to raise kids. I'm going to put that link there as well. Another one is Raising Kids Who Thrive.
Raising emotionally and socially
healthy children.
healthy children.
Raising emotionally and now what I love about the Great Courses is that they come from a perspective of science. So this is observable, real stuff that you can go through. Now, I would always recommend that you want to do this probably as a subscription. You want to get a Great Courses subscription, and then you can go through as many courses as you want. Back in the day, I was paying $500 a course, and it was absolutely worth it, even though I was only getting paid like $1,200 a month at the time, which is absolutely nothing sauce. Yeah. So anyway, I was putting a lot into this because it was so worth it. What you want to do is that you want to get this to be able to expand your parenting toolkit. So those are the books that I can recommend, and also the courses that I'll recommend. With that, it can go through a lot of different tools that you're going to be able to use. So other things about disciplining as well. What else do we use to discipline? Creating a routine is going to be very helpful.
Very much so.
So that way, if you're a break routine, we can always put it back into the point where it needs to be.
Right. And I think it does get a little different as your child grows older. And we do have young kids now, so we still have yet to learn a lot of the things, a lot of these parenting skills. For now, we do realize that structure does help them stay on task and helps them be a little bit more obedient, so to speak. But I know it does change, and there are a lot of more variables as your children get older.
Yeah, and a lot of stuff too. Just to let you know, we just try to make sure that obedience becomes a joy.
Right. It's something that they choose to do on their own, not feared into doing or scared into obeying.
Yeah. So what are the results with our kids so far? So far, our kids have a pretty decent reputation for being well-behaved children. Like when our daughter goes to daycare, it's always mentioned like how pleasant she is, how she's always so happy. So as it is right now, it seems like it's working. I don't want to say that it's all the way working because only time will really tell with that.
And I do feel like she does pose a little bit more challenges than
yeah, with
Josiah.
With Josiah, we don't really talk about him all the way that much because he was the easiest kid ever.
It seems like it, but being autistic, it seems like obeying and following instruction was pretty much easy for him. So you just tell him once and he would do it. But Amaya is a bit different.
She's definitely different.
Definitely
than
different.
Josiah.
And she definitely makes her own choices at a very young age. So,
but here's the thing. With Josiah, it's also strange because with him being autistic, he was supposed to have meltdowns.
right.
He was supposed to have tantrums.
He did at first.
And what did we do for that though? Because I believe that that method can also work with other children that have tantrums as well.
He did, son.
Yeah, like
you're right.
so, like with other kids that have tantrums as well. A lot of times kids are having tantrums because there's something that they want to get.
And
they're trying to communicate
it. Right.
So I remember with Josiah, we didn't all, of course, it's not okay for him to throw a tantrum. We're not going to say that. What we try to do is try to get him to express his frustration in better ways. So instead of just saying, the common thought for tantrums is you just leave the child the way that they are, or you make it worse. Whereas what we try to do is that we realized that the child was trying to communicate to us. So as a result, we try to encourage the communication. Later on, what we are going to try with the kids is that if they ever do talk back, we're going to use that as an opportunity to engage in a conversation.
All right, so let's
go ahead.
Ashley Bloom said, personally, I do think it depends on what your child will respond to best without learning to fear you. That has been part of the argument behind spanking, that you teach them to fear you, which is counterintuitive to teaching them that there are consequences to negative behavior. Whatever they respond best to, meaning refraining from negative behavior, and they do not have any adverse changes to their general selves, that is what you should be consistent with. Fear the negative consequence is different than fearing you. And Maurice said there's nothing wrong with fear. See, that's where I do disagree just a bit, because living life motivated by fear is not really fun. I mean, yes, we do have to have some basic understanding of, or basic fear of some consequences, but that shouldn't be the reason why you act. That shouldn't be the reason why you behave well. You should behave well because that's just part of your character. You should behave well because you love behaving right. That's what I see.
Yeah, and also
we are called to fear God. Oh, this is a good. Thank you for bringing that up.
I'm not going to really talk about that because that's a whole that's a whole different subject.
Right.
But I mean, fear doesn't necessarily have to be that negative, and also fearing negative consequences as a motivation. That's where I kind of don't want it to be. I don't want it to be the motivating factor of it. It can be a kind of isolated icing or whatever else you want to call it.
A small part of it.
It can be a small part, but I'm not really into using fear as a motivating factor.
Fear as in,
and also, when it comes to consequences, things like spankings are not necessarily consequences, because you have to actually impose that. You actually have to create that as a consequence. It's not a natural consequence. And unfortunately, what happens with some people that do get spanked is that they try to find out, how can I get to do this wrong thing and just not get caught? So they become more shrewd, they become more deceptive. And that's some of those kind of side effects that could come as a result of spanking, rather than using other types of preventative methods or to be able to use things that are going to be disciplinary things.
Right. Yeah, and Maurice, I really, really would like you to get on, because you have
he's been saying a lot of good stuff.
Right.
But the thing about it is, like, the tools that we want to use, you do have to know your child. You do want to expand your parenting toolkits. And, okay, another thing that we have, we efface from our minds completely that there's any such thing as a bad kid. No such thing. And that's going to go really far. A lot of times people say that they need to beat the kid because the kid's just a bad kid. If you can have it in your mind as a parent that there's no such thing as a bad kid, there are good kids that do bad things occasionally. But if you have it in mind that the kid's bad, then you're gonna feel like you have to spank them and that this is the only way to do it. It locks you in, and also it's an arrogance that comes with these type of parents that believe in bad kids. Kids are not bad. They can do bad things, and they have the ability and what's in them to be able to do right. It's our job as a parent to bring that out of them.
Right.
So I mean, my favorite.
You want to read what Regine was saying?
Oh, Regine, children need to know and be given rules to begin with. Yes. Okay, they do need to be given rules.
Right.
Like for us, people look at us and think that we're going to be a lot looser as parents. We are by far some of the most structured, stringent parents ever. We're very time-based, and we just don't try to do it in a forceful type of way. Our kids, they're upstairs and they're in bed by 8:30 every single night, and that's just not something that's going to change. So there does need to be rules, and we are very strict as parents. Even though we're goofy and we're cool and all this other type of stuff, being strict doesn't mean that you can't be fun. But, okay, so they need to be given rules. We talk a lot about ages and their comprehension of the corrective measures. The same way we were given the Ten Commandments, we need to give our children rules so that they may know what to do and what not to do. I agree. We do have to give them rules. I absolutely agree with that. And our children do have a lot of rules. Every Monday, what happens at 6:30? Homework.
Homework, yeah.
That's homework day. Let's see, what else happens? We used to have it as his piano lessons were a certain day, but it's very much stringent, and that's just fine. Raising children and being a parent, just because we don't spank them, doesn't mean that we're loose with everything.
That doesn't mean they get away with doing whatever they want. That's absolutely not true.
Oh, they will get away with nothing. Everything I do as a parent is to get them in line with the rules and to correct them in those things. Yeah, the connection did fail again. Oh, can you touch on not being your children's friends? For us, we are our children's friends, but that's because we define friendship a bit differently than most people. It seems like the people that say that you are not your child's friend believe that friends are supposed to kind of enable you. Right. Friends are not supposed to hold you accountable for anything. Now, what our ambition is to be that type of friend that does not enable you, that wants to see the best for you, that holds you accountable.
Right. Who is not afraid to tell you when you are wrong.
Exactly. Kind of like how Jay is to us.
Yeah.
So we want to be that type of friend. And we're hoping that if we can model what a friend is, they'll go out and grow up in life and pick better friends.
Right.
They'll know that the person that's a yes man is not your friend.
Right.
Why? Because my parents are friends and they don't let me get away with foolishness. So your friend is not a person that lets you get away with foolishness. Your friend is a person that holds you accountable and helps you bring us your best.
Exactly. Max said he definitely loved what you said. You need to be a friend so they know what type of friends to choose. Absolutely.
Exactly. And they need to know that just because a person rides for you and they come out as supportive, that doesn't mean that this person is your friend. Just because a person has no type of consequences, that person is not your friend. Right. Because if you believe that a friend is a person that never says anything mean or derogatory to you, then that person is not your friend. A friend holds you accountable.
Absolutely.
And that's the reason why we say that we are our children's friends.
Right.
My son right now, he's my best buddy. And probably in 10 years he might not be, so I got to cherish these moments. But him being my best buddy does not mean that I am not going to hold him accountable.
Right.
And that's the thing. It's simultaneously friends and parents.
Yes. And I mean, we do instruct and we do correct and we do have other privilege as parents over them, but that doesn't mean we cannot be their friends. And honestly, just the joy it brings them to know that they are our friends, just like Jesus calls us his friends. Like, it's a beautiful thing to watch that in them when they get so happy to know that they are our friends. You know, we don't want to create those distancing type of language to separate ourselves from our kids like that and say we're not their friends.
Okay, so, I mean, it's 11:30 now.
Oh, yeah, so
almost done.
We are almost done. I mean, anybody else wants to get up on the call, please turn your phones horizontally and let us know. Maurice, I'm so sorry we couldn't get you on. Maybe we could keep trying. If you can't parent and be their friend, then there's something off with your parenting. Yes, good point.
Yeah, if you can't parent and be their friends.
Right. And I have heard people say, you know, kids are unruly because their parents were, you know, just their friends. And like we explained before, that's not the case.
Yeah, the parent was neither their parent nor their friend.
They just let
your friend doesn't let you get away with anything.
They don't let
your friend. Yo, here's the thing. Jay right now, he's like one of my best friends, and he's not gonna let me just get away with anything.
Right.
There are times when he's actually called me out, even with financial stuff. He'll even tell me like, no, you can't eat that right now. You don't have it.
You don't have that money.
That's what friends do. So a friend, what happens is that with the parents that talk about like you can't be a parent and a friend, they look at other parents that try to just be buddy, and buddies are not the same as friends.
Right.
Acquaintances are not the same as friends. So you have parents that try to be buddy and let the kids get away with anything. That's neither a parent nor a friend.
Right.
Friends hold you accountable, and parents hold their kids accountable to the structure that's been set.
And so do friends.
And absolutely. And what a parent does though is that they create structure for their kids. My friends don't necessarily create structure for me.
Right.
They
And
hold
so
me
there
within what
are
I'm-
differences.
Yeah, you have to be both.
Right.
A parent and a friend. As a friend, I hold them accountable, want them to be the best that they can be, have fun with them. As a parent, I create structure for their lives.
Right. Right.
And that's what it is. Create that structure, follow through with that structure. If you do promise a certain punishment, as I said earlier, go through with that punishment. So if you promise them a behind whooping, go through with the behind whooping.
Right. Be
That's just
consistent. Definitely be consistent.
And I believe that if between the two, even though I'm mostly against spanking for myself, between the two, if you can be between consistency and spankings, be consistent. That's gonna matter a lot more than anything else. So anyway, let's go back a little bit about the parenting toolkit.
Yeah, toolkit. What else did you put?
So I'm just very big on the removal of privileges. That's my real go-to with all of this.
Did you already talk on when it's okay or when would you spank?
Here's the thing. For me, it's probably never okay. I'm not going to say that about other parents.
Yeah, parents, you choose how to parent your kid, and we've come to that conclusion.
Exactly. So the thing about it is, like, I'm personally mostly against spanking. My goal is to make sure that I never have to spank my kids, ever. For other parents, they can choose whenever they want to. I'm just trying to say, don't only have talking, repeating, and spanking
and
as
yelling,
and yelling as the only thing.
Right.
Also, I would say even beyond not spanking, I'm bigger on not yelling at your kids. Because what happens is that if you yell at your kids,
I agree. It's like violence teaching them, right?
yeah.
Right.
So when you yell at your kids, what happens is that you teach your kids, you train your kids to only take you seriously when you yell.
Right.
So now all these times, if that's going to be a baseline, mommy's going to be serious when she yells. That's when her no is for real. So if I can just continue to try to push the issue a little bit more, and when she's calm, I'll continue to push and push and push until she yells, and then I'll take it seriously. Not exactly what I want to do. So from a young age, I'm going to make sure that they know that my soft no is a real no.
Yelling is worse.
Yes. Absolutely. Never ever yell. No matter what your parents tell us. If you're going to still use spankings, that's one thing as it. But I do not believe that we should be yelling at our children. It teaches bad communication as well. Here's what else it does. Let's say that your yelling does work. Guess what happens? They grow up, they go into the workplace, and who do they respect and listen to the most?
The people that yell.
The people that yell and the people that are abusers. They now learned that when a person is an abuser and they're yelling, that they deserve your attention and your action. I will not teach that to my children. Verbal violence is not something that I want to train them with. Now, physical violence only happens every now and then. But the point that I'm making is that while I am okay with parents choosing to spank, if that's what they want to do, yelling, I believe, should be off the table. And it's not only off the table for parents. I believe that I want to take it off the table for myself in life in general.
And as adults, you just don't yell. That's how we have to teach our children to effectively communicate without raising their voice. And that's why we have to model that behavior and not do that too.
So, and then when will you spank? I already told you, the times when I probably will is if they're older, they're bullying someone else, and they want to go start a fight at school. Guess what? They're going to fight me next.
Right.
I will not tolerate my children going out there and doing it. Even during tantrums, believe it or not, we've never had to deal with tantrums.
Right. Well, when Josiah was really young, when he
had
was
2 meltdowns.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not that many, but that was kind of easily corrected.
Yeah. Oh, tantrums in a grocery store.
Oh, so our kids, we've never actually had that experience. Like I said, our kids are still young, 5 and almost 2. We've taken them to the grocery store, and they pretty much are calm.
See,
so
okay.
I mean, it's very different for every child. So honestly, we don't know.
Yeah,
we don't have that experience yet.
the buildup of a tantrum is a process, actually.
Right.
So what happens when most parents go to the grocery store is that they might have the child with them, but it's almost like they're holding their child hostage while they go to the grocery store. The child then gets frustrated because they know that they are a second thought in the minds. The parents just trying to get something done. So what we actually do when we go to the grocery store is that we try to engage the children in our shopping. Now that is a twofold thing. So I have something that I want to go buy. I show that I have a list that I want to kind of go with. After that, we use that list and I have the children participate in my shopping. That way, we don't necessarily have to deal with the temper tantrums. It's not like they feel like they were, it's not they feel like they were being ignored. So it doesn't have that same buildup. So Diana says, some kids need a real beating though. And if not, the jail will do it. Have you seen these disrespectful kids disrespecting the authority figure, be it a teacher, etc.? See, so Diana, I don't usually do this on lives, but I'm going to take a strong position of disagreement. I'm not going to say it's universal, but most people that are in jail today were beat as kids.
Right.
And it didn't help them at all. There's an article that I posted, or a study that I posted that followed people across different cultures. It was thousands of people that being beaten actually raised your chances of having run-ins with law enforcement.
Hopefully you can find that article and post it.
Yeah, I definitely can. It's on my page, so if not, I'll post it later on. But I don't want to use that as an excuse. I want to be able to raise children that are able to communicate effectively. My other question is, if a person is being disrespectful to authority figures and teachers because they know that they can, is it possible that they've never had the opportunity to be real before?
Right.
That the reason why they're lashing out and that they're screaming and yelling is because there's been no one to actually value their words and value what they're trying to say. So as a result, yelling becomes your first thing. And also, because a lot of times spanking is done out of aggression, what ends up happening is that they learn that if I want to say something and be important, I need to be more aggressive.
Right.
All right. So he says tantrums were corrected early on. Now, Diana, you say because the verbal doesn't do it.
Yeah.
Well, the thing about it is that it's not just repeating the same verbal thing over and over again.
That's not enough.
And also, verbally too. One rule that we have verbally, you want to add this to your parenting toolkit, is you do not use not phrases.
Yes.
So it's not enough to say, okay, don't touch. It has to be keep your hands to the side. Keep your hands away.
Yourself.
Keep your hands away. You actually tell them what you want them to do, not what you want them not to do.
Right.
That way they can actually take action. This works for our son because he's a very concrete thinker.
Very
So
concrete.
if we were to say to Josiah, stand up and raise your hands, he'll just do it. But he doesn't understand not phrases. We transfer the same thing to our daughter as well, and it works pretty well. So instead of saying, stay away from that, it's, Amaya, come over here.
Right.
Stand over here when we're at the stove. Stand behind this line when the stove is on. Things like that. So that way it's not, don't touch the stove. It's stand here when the stove is on. All right, that's the rule. That's what we're going to do. What else we have?
Can kids also learn behaviors outside the home and can bring them in? Yes, that is true. Kids can bring home.
They will.
And we've seen that.
Here's the thing. Kids will bring home behaviors outside the home as well. The point is that I want to give them at least a perspective that we want to share with them so that they can hopefully carry this out to them. Oh yeah, redirection. Redirection does work very
Absolutely.
well with children.
Which is kind of like what we do that. We use that a lot.
Oh yeah, a lot of redirection. That's a big part of our toolkit. And that's part of the disciplining process. If we can get to the point where we are actually telling what to do before anything happens, we don't have to deal with the punishment afterwards. Discipline is a process for desired behavior. Punishment is what happens when the desired behavior is not reached. All right, so what else we got?
We got like 5 minutes.
Yeah, you only got like 5 more minutes. But pretty much what I want to say, what we really want to say with all this is that we're not going to discount spanking from any other parents. We do not believe on the most part that parents are doing this out of a lack of love for their kids. They're doing it mostly because they love their children. What I'm going to say about that is that in order to express more love for your child, expand your toolkit as a parent to include more than just spanking, and also to be in the process of discipline. Discipline is the actions leading up to desired behavior. Spanking is a punishment when the desired behavior is not being reached. So expand your toolkit. My favorite tool is the removal of privileges. And that is, of course, kid dependent, child dependent. So for me, like I said, my son, he likes to read. He will always get one storybook at night, no matter what. But it's a privilege for him to get a second story, because honestly, that takes a very long time. But guess what? He can do that. So what can I do? I can remove that privilege. Josiah, we're not going to have a second story tonight because of whatever happens. And that can be his punishment, is a removal of privileges. It also builds something that he's going to value.
Right.
And that's my favorite tool. What's yours, by the way?
Well, I wanted to talk about something real quick for older kids or teens that are unruly or not behaving. If you find that you've spanked a lot, you've taken away privileges, and you still feel like your teen is still unruly, maybe you need outside intervention. And by outside intervention, therapy. Because I firmly believe that no kid is bad, but there are patterns that create how a kid behaves as they grow. So if you have a teen who is constantly unruly, you've beat them, you've talked to them, you've employed all tools, you need to seek outside help. You definitely need to, that child needs to see someone with like a psychiatrist or something, or not psychiatrist, psychologist or something.
Anybody that's going to help.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with outside help. That's the thing.
Right.
Outside help is just fine. So, just in the end, should we spank our kids?
That's up to you.
That's really up to you. I'll say if you're gonna spank your kids and leave that on the table, just have other tools. As for me, I'm gonna collect these tools that I have right here. Belt. Hey, you want all these, baby? Ladle. I'm gonna collect all these tools, and while they might still be here, success for me as a parent is gonna be that my children grow up and I never ever once have to use any of these on them.
Right.
If my children turn 18 and I never hit them with a belt, my hand, the spoon or anything, and that all these other things work for me, then I believe that I have been successful as a parent.
Right.
What's that mean?
Just kind of putting them to sleep.
Oh yeah. So that's what I have. If there's anything else that you want to add, babe, but
I don't know. I think we pretty much summed it up. We did talk about a lot. You'll be able to go back and review this talk, and remember in the comment section we did put some of our tools that we can use, some books that you can read, some articles. Definitely, if you want to know more of some of the research or some of the books that we do read, definitely hit us up, hit Hanif up or myself, and we can get you all those tools.
Absolutely. Anyway, it's been a great night. Follow Real People, Real Lives. Every single Friday night we talk about something of this nature. And I just hope that these last few hours that we spent together have been beneficial to you. Thanks again.
All right, bye guys.
All right.
All right.
That's it.
That's it. So how do we turn it off?
Oh, you just press finish. By the way, you look really pretty.
Thank you, babe.
Like
I'm
awesomely
going to
pretty.
sleep. I'm going to sleep.